So we are out here at what most people wouldn't really think about when they think about Maine. This is one of the many, many gravel pits that supply the sand and the dirt for the roads during the colder parts of the year when, well, it's icy. But this location is particularly interesting because not only does it supply the gravel and the rock and such forth, further down there's where stripped asphalt goes as well. But even more interesting, kinda hard to see, right up there, oh, there we go, right up there is Passadumkeag Mountain, where we have a very large wind farm. I'm going to turn the camera around here, I'll get myself behind it I should say, so we can try to zoom in on that and get a better look at it. I'm out here, I've got my camera set here with me, with my short-range lens, take some beautiful panoramas of the area, as well as my long-range lens to try to reach out and touch those windmills a little bit more. Also, since it's not terribly windy today, there is a little bit of a wind coming from behind me. We'll see if we can't get Mav up in the air, head out, see how close we can get to those windmills. I'm not entirely sure of the distance from here, but I'm sure it'll be an absolutely beautiful flight and we should get some awesome photos out of it. So let's take a look at those windmills through the eyes of the camcorder. One moment. Isn't that glorious? It would be more glorious if I could stop moving. So yeah, we'll take a few shots, see what comes up. Stay tuned. Alright, so now that we're all set up with our camera, I'm going to be using live view for this so that I can stand back, get a good idea of where I'm at. I also have the focusing grid set up so that I can section off each shot to be able to stitch together a proper panoramic view. Where I am shooting at 18mm, I should be able to get a beautiful wide angle using the smallest amount of photos possible, which really helps with processing power. So let's take some shots and I'll put the result up after this. Now for every section of your panorama, it's very important to take a couple of different shots. I usually take about 3 shots for a burst, just to show if there's any movement in the scene. Especially where we have all this high cloud cover, and there's just a little bit of wind, so there's going to be a little bit of movement in the tops of the trees. So now I'm going to slide over, just by rotating the head of my tripod, about 1 block. The screen is split up into 16 blocks, 4 on top, 4 in the middle, 4 on the bottom. I'm going to use the center block to keep my to keep my picture level. So we're going to turn until I'm using the tops of different trees as my lineup points. So I'm going to move them over 1 block. So now we're set up for our second shot. And again, I'm not sure if you can hear the shutter. I'm taking 3 shots in rapid succession. 1, 2, 3. So now we're going to rotate again. I've picked my point. That's going to be the edge. And I'm going to rotate my head until that edge comes up against the next stop, the next grid mark. Now, as I mentioned, where we have this beautiful high cloud cover today, I want to make sure that I'm putting as much of that in the frame as I can without creating too much boredom. Sky shots are usually very bland, so it's a good idea to try to put as much in the foreground or on the bottom part of a photo. Keep the sky as small as possible. In this instance, where we have such beautiful high up cloud cover, I'm trying to emphasize that by making that approximately half of my shot, maybe a little bit more. So again, I've picked my spot, and I'm going to rotate until that's lined up with the next grid point. And of course, you're going to be making circles around your camera. So we'll go ahead and take another set of shots. I've got an f-stop right now of f8, so I'm letting my autofocus do the work on this specific shot. So we'll continue. And here we are for our final burst of shots. That one I held the trigger a little bit long, got 4 shots out of it. No big deal. Now, if this was something that I wanted to create a multiple height panorama, what I would end up doing is on my way through I would be remembering what each point was so that I can rotate my camera up, again, moving one grid space. So my camera right here, say that is in the third row from the bottom, second row over. What I would do is I would move it up so that this camera, was in the second row, or second column, on the bottom row, and then come back across, so that I was staying even, so to speak. Because when you stitch the photos together, it makes it a lot easier on the auto stitching software to line them up when you have a good chunk of overlap and plenty of photos to work with. So I've taken my photos. I don't really need to look in on them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shut my camera off and swap out to my long range lens so I can try to get a good shot of those windmills. This is a beautiful area to be able to do that. Bear with me, I'll be right back. Alright, so we're going to swap out our 18-55 that's on here right now. We're going to swap that out to the Nikon 70-300. That's going to give me a lot more reach to be able to go out and really try to fill the frame with those windmills. So we're going to get that swapped out. Now, in my pocket, of course, is the lens cap. Always, always, always replace your lens cap before switching lenses. When I'm switching out a short lens for a long lens, take your back cap off, tuck the lens in your elbow, rotate the old lens off, and quickly replace the rear protector. Now this, I can fit right in my pocket. Cargo pants supposedly went out in the 90s, not a chance. Cargo pants or a drop pouch is your best friend. Take your new lens cap off. Now my lenses are usually pretty clean, but I always like to give them a quick once over with a lens cloth after I take the lens off before I start shooting. Now, just a matter of opening up the view panel and turning her back on. Now, again, I'm going to use live view because it focuses better in high contrast scenarios. And where there's heavy cloud cover far over where those windmills are, there's a lot of contrast there, but it's going to be more difficult to work with when I'm right up on top of the camera. So we'll begin by getting the windmills lined up using our grid lines again. The 4x4 grid lines make it super, super easy to get point right in the dead center where you're going to look. So I'm adjusting my focus point here before I get too far into things. And right now we're at 70mm. 70mm f8. Let's take a test shot just to see what the... And that looks good. I like the look of that. Contrast, colors. So now we're going to rotate straight up to 300. It's not going to be the sharpest at 300, but we've got a lot of distance here, and we can fix a lot in post. So let's reach right out at 300 and see what kind of a view we get. Now, where you're working with a telephoto lens, 300 is a pretty long reach for most people. Lock your tripod down. I was just shooting a panorama, so I had my turn control loose so I can go from point A to point B. With a short lens, it's not as big a deal because there's a lot more wiggle room. With a long lens, that little bit of turning can really throw off a shot. So I'm right out at 300. I've got those windmills right there in my screen. Let the camera do the focusing. And they're moving. Those windmills are moving. So I'm going to zoom right in. See what kind of propeller blur I've got. Got a little bit less than I had hoped for. So I am going to slow down my frame rate. A little longer shutter time. But in order to do that, I am going to need to bump up my f-stop. It's not ideal because if you bump your f-stop up too much, you can get some pretty ugly artifacts. Wind's just picking up a little bit, hoping it doesn't tip you over. So let's see what I can do focusing on those windmills now. All right. That's looking a lot better. Now, it's still pulling a lot of the foreground. I don't want it to pull the foreground. So I'm going to go back into viewfinder mode, tilt my hat up, go back into viewfinder mode, and use the manual focus to really bring those windmills into sharpness. There. It's not much better. The camera is a lot smarter than you give it credit for. But I was able to bring that in. So that's really all I wanted to do with the DSLR today. I'm going to get it packed up. Again, put your lens cap on. My biggest thing, the way that I'm set up right now, I have to have the short lens on when I put it back in my hard case. So I'm going to swap these lenses back out, get her put away, probably swap you over to this tripod so that I'm not worried about tip over, and we'll get Mav up in the air. How's that sound? Be right back. Alright, so we've got Mav all set up. She's a good old girl. She's at 95% battery. We're going to take her up in the air, and like I said, we're going to go out towards those windmills, see how close we can get. We've got a pretty decent wind. Oh, I say pretty decent, probably 6-8 miles per hour. That's shearing right across. So, not going to have too much trouble one way or the other. Maybe just keeping her straight. So let's get her up in the air. There she is. I'm going to take her out to about 50 feet. I've got amazing clear visibility exactly where I'm going, so I'll be able to keep an eye on her for a good long time. Do a quick left and right check. Angle towards the windmills, and away we go. Let's follow her on our journey. We're going to leave her in standard flight mode. I know some people like to, when they're heading out a long ways away, they like to put it in sport mode to try to get there faster. I don't really find that to be all that great a thing to do. Always makes me worry about having enough battery power to get home. So we're going along. We're about 800 feet out away from me right now. I still got really good visibility on her. The orange slung the camera down there for a second. The orange on her really makes it super, super easy to keep an eye on her. Now I've got a little bit of glare on my screen. I'm going to let her hover for just a second. See if I can't make my screen a little bit brighter. There we go. We got a little bit more brightness out of the screen. So like I said, we are approximately 800 feet out. Let's take a look around down and see what we've got below us, shall we? I'm going to pull the camera down just to see what's beneath us. It looks like, a beautiful screen here. Let's take a look at how that looks down there. And we're 50 feet off from where we took off. Isn't that beautiful? And beyond that, grab your flying over. So let's go ahead and push up. Get your eyes back on target. So we are at a mile right now, and I still have great connection, great visibility. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring her up to about 100 feet in the air, tilt the camera down, and just get a look at what's out there. So we're going to go up to about 100 feet, and I just now realized, as you're probably noticing the screen zooming in, I have not been filming this entire flight out. So, as you can see, we are still super far away. Mav's got great line of sight, but we're still super far away from those windmills. So let's go ahead and pull that camera down a little bit, get some of that sky out of there, and just take a, like I said, let's head up to that 100 feet. Okay, there we go. We're at 100 feet right now, so we're gonna just take a little pan around just to get a look at what's around us here. Now you're gonna have a much better view of this than I do because, again, there's a lot of glare on my screen, but you can see just gorgeous, gorgeous country out here. Again, I keep looking up to make sure she's there, make sure everything looks good. And it's just trees for miles and miles and miles. So we turn all the way around, back the direction we came. We're staring straight back at us. It's hard to see. It's hard to see us because we're low. Got to keep with those FAA regulations. There's nobody out here for me to contact to say, hey, I'm going to go up. I want to go up, so many feet higher than what I'm legally supposed to. I just want to take a quick look around. Nobody out here for me to do that with. So I really have to pay attention and keep low so that I don't cause any issues. So now we're facing directly back the way we came. Let's brighten the scene up just a little bit. And we'll start on our way home. Just a nice leisurely stroll. We're going at about 18 miles an hour. Again, that shear wind, the way it was coming, it's going to be a little bit more difficult coming back than it was going out. So we're well on our way. We're sitting at about 4,600 feet again. So just let's sit back, enjoy the view. Alright, so we're having a little trouble getting home because that shear wind has changed direction a little bit. So I'm flying directly into this wind right now. And it's hard to see, it's hard to tell when you're looking down at the screen, but she's having a little bit of trouble getting back. Normally my airspeed is around 19 to 21 miles an hour. Right now we're cruising at a steady 8.5. So we still got plenty of time. We got about 5 minutes before we come to the point that we've got to find someplace to put down, and then I got to go find it. But I don't have to worry about that. So what we're going to do is, you can see right now, there's our pit. There's where we're at. Okay? And I can just see her right over there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down. When your wind's getting bad and it's hard to see, you're high up. Wind is worse the higher up you are. So we're going to bring her down a little bit. Right now we're sitting at 110 feet. Coming into the wind, she's raised up a little. So we're going to bring her down. We're going to come down to about 80 feet. 80 feet, and there we go. Pick that speed up. We're now cruising right along at about 16 miles an hour. It's not perfect. It's not the best, but it's going to get us home with plenty of time to spare. We're going to land her right here behind us, and we'll be good to go. There she is. Oh yeah, super easy to see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do something a little bit cheeky. See that road right there? I'm going to aim the camera straight down. I got plenty of time. I got about 5 minutes. Since I've come down, the wind's not buffeting so bad, I got about 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right over. I'm going to aim the camera straight down. We're going to get close to that road, and we're going to come right up the pit. So let's aim that camera down here. If I can find my button. Alright, see. Things are a little bit weird here. So we're turned. So let's go ahead and get ourselves over. So we're directly over that puppy, and we're going to come right down. Now, where we took off from a higher point than what we're coming into, it's going to make the height adjustment just go absolutely bonkers. Alright, so now we're going to angle ourselves up. Pull focus down a little bit more. Alright. Turn. Now let's get up this pit. So we're going to follow the track. It's going to be a little bit faster turning than what I normally do. We're going to turn up. We're going to raise up. Bugs are crazy. Let's get ourselves over. Do a nice solid turn. Now I have lost sight of her, but I know exactly where she is. Oh, I just got a peek of her over there. So we're going to continue on our way. Come right up and over. There we are. And here we are. All right. So we'll zoom over, turn her around here, and get right low. There we go. Home safe and sound. In fact, let's bring her on over. Bring her on over. All right, let's put her down. She's had a long flight. She deserves a rest. All right. So go ahead, just stop recording, get everything shut down. Her battery took one heck of a beating. She's down to about 10% right now. I don't like to do that. I don't like to do that at all. But that sheer wind changed on us on our way through. So I'm going to get us all packed up. We're going to head home and keep an eye out at the end of this video here. I'm going to pop up some of those beautiful pictures we took today. And yeah, I'll catch you next time.